and
Okay.
made, I think, like $8,000 that month, I think. So it was pretty profitable right out of the gate.
Wow.
And I was
First
like,
month, eight
this
thousand
is great.
dollars.
Yeah. And I was like, this is great. I've been doing this wrong the entire time. And by May of that year, I submitted my resignation at the university.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Blitz Growth. Super excited to have an amazing guest here today. I think you're going to learn so much, and you're going to get a lot out of this episode. It's Dr. Tracy Timberlake, who has an outstanding wrap of achievements. She's a content creator that has done a huge amount of courses, and a lot of them getting a lot of traction, so definitely worth checking out, and even covered a lot of the topics at TEDx events. So lots of credibility there that we're going to go through today. She also does some one-on-one coaching, which we want to dive into. And today, we really want to ask a few questions and understand how Tracy is helping content creators build their personal brand and then create products like courses and one-on-one coaching around that. So Tracy, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a great conversation. I'm really excited.
Yeah, so I did, a little bit of research and have discovered the amount of content that you publish on social is quite impressive. So,
Thank you.
if you were to kind of meet someone at a bar, restaurant, dinner, event, how would you kind of introduce yourself? What do you feel like you do, or what kind of value do you feel like you provide?
Yeah, so normally when I introduce myself as a coach or an online educator, because that will pique people's interest. Sometimes online educator people don't understand what that means, and so I have to delineate between being a professor, which I still do, by the way. I still teach one class a semester at a university, but I also do
Nice.
my own classes, my own courses, my own curriculum, and but it's not just the courses. It's also being an educator through my content, being an educator as a coach. So normally I would introduce myself as an online educator.
Nice. That's actually really interesting that you kind of gone from the traditional teaching into almost like the new age teaching of
Yeah.
the online course and education curriculums and that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
I
it is.
suppose there was
It's
a lot of
it's cool.
crossover there.
There's a lot of crossover in the sense that I get to plan out start to finish what my students or what my clients will experience, right? When I'm teaching at the university, I
Mhm.
go through the same process in terms of here's the syllabus, here's what we're going to walk through. And in my own courses that I create, it's the same thing. Here's the syllabus, here's what we're going to walk through. It's just usually for my own courses, I don't have, a governing body that's overlooking my curriculums and making sure that it
Mhm.
matches up with, whatever accreditation the university requires.
You do what you want.
Yeah,
I love it.
right.
That's awesome. And then, I know there's a lot of talk about, people having those overnight success and all that sort of stuff. One day they have nothing and then the next day they have 1 million followers, which a lot of us know is completely not true. So how long has it taken you to get to this point? Like compared to, not having any followers, not having any courses,
Right.
any students or anything like that? What's the actual runtime
Right.
that it's
Actual
taken?
runtime of my online business. I started my online business January 2nd of 2016, and now we're in 2024. So that's how long it took me to build up my catalog as an online coach, as well as all of the courses that I've created. I did start my YouTube channel where I was not talking about anything business related, by the way. I started my YouTube
Mhm.
channel back in 2011-ish. So I had some experience being online, being on camera, and creating content. And then in 2016, I just started to switch up my content to talk more about business, branding, personal branding, leadership, things like that.
Okay. And then how far into that did you decide, hey, people wanting me to coach them or people are wanting to pay for my advice or my time? When was that tipping point or that aha moment where you were like, okay, now is the time to actually turn this into a business?
Yeah, let's go back to the beginning there. So like I said, I mentioned my YouTube channel that I started in 2011, and that was a beauty and lifestyle channel. So really it just followed me around doing what I was doing, talking about the things that I enjoyed. And what I learned in building that up, because this is back when nobody was making money on YouTube, people were not influencers. That word was not a thing. We were just regular everyday people making videos in our bathroom. And right around 2012, 2013, that's when I first started to get paid as an influencer. Like just, hey, talk about this product and we'll pay you. And I was working at the university at the time. So I was still in higher education, but I realized, oh, like people will pay me to just like be myself and talk about things that I like. This is the best job ever. And that was sort of where the wheels started turning in my head. Like, how can this become full time? Because, like I said, this is 2012. No one was full time content creating at this point. Like, we were all
Mm,
just enjoying ourselves. It was a great community, but no one was making a lot of money doing it. So 2015, more brand deals started to come, and people started asking me about other things. Well, how did you get started making YouTube videos? How did you, how do you get so confident or so comfortable? And that was right at the tail end of 2015. And so that's why top of the year of 2016, I had my first client January 2nd. So immediately was profitable, which we love. My first course
hmm
I launched on February 4th, and
Okay.
made, I think, like $8,000 that month, I think. So it was pretty profitable right out of the gate.
Wow.
And I was
First
like,
month, eight
this
thousand
is great.
dollars.
Yeah. And I was like, this is great. I've been doing this wrong the entire time. And by May of that year, I submitted my resignation at the university.
Mm. Ah, wow. Okay, so it kind of did happen pretty quickly once you sort of got all the foundation set.
It did, but I would say, again, I had experience in the digital space, being a content creator, which
hmm
those years of making YouTube videos for free, like, and just making content, knowing how to promote content, all of those years really played into how quickly I was able to learn some of the other tools. You know what I mean? Because
hmm
I'd already been
Yeah.
online for several years at that point. And people ask all the time, how long does it take? And I'm like, well, how fast can you learn? That's how long it's going to take. How
Yeah.
fast can you learn? And I just happened to be in a position where I would say the visibility stuff, people have a fear of visibility, and I'd already overcome that. So I had no problem
Mm,
sort of showcasing myself on the internet because I'd already been on the internet for years.
yeah. No, that's a great point. And then for the listeners, what do you think the most valuable platform is right now for people who are looking to get into, coaching or maybe course creation? And I know the topic matters a lot, but in general, where do you feel like it sounds like YouTube was your starting point, and
Right.
then what do you think is the most valuable channel at the moment if someone was to get started and put a bunch of time and effort, create 100
Yeah.
videos? Which platform would you focus on?
Yeah, I just made a post about some social media predictions and talking to people who had been to different summits and forums and at the TikTok office and things like that. And here's what we're seeing in 2024. Number one, it's going to be video, primarily authentic video, because AI is such a big deal that people are now
hmm
creating content from AI. So we're going to see the average consumer of content crave more authentic connection, and video is going to be the best way to do that. Like you personally on video. So YouTube
hmm
is going to be right back up there with the rest of them. It's kind of coming full circle because long form video is going to come back into play. Even TikTok is starting to allow and desire for their content creators to create videos that are 10 minutes and more. So I would say
hmm
if you're just getting started with nothing, capitalize on what the organic reach of TikTok and YouTube can do for you. And then, of course, the third option would be find where your people typically exist. So if you're working with executives or professionals, then
mm
LinkedIn is going to be a place where you probably want to begin building a community. If you are more working with people that you kind of already know, Facebook is going to be that. Instagram, it's a
hmm
fun place to be, but it just takes a lot of time to build on
It's
that
hard.
platform.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I think the sexy one is Instagram.
Yeah,
The
yeah. Everybody wants that,
the
but it's gosh, it's just
yeah,
it takes so much time.
yeah. And then it's a great point that you make actually, the impact of AI. How do you feel that's going to affect the coaching world? Obviously, if you can go and ask a robot any question and then it spit out an answer, how do you think coaches can react to that and adopt that technology versus, get scared of it?
Yeah, I think AI is going to be a great equalizer. I just posted this on my Instagram today, but AI is going to be a great equalizer in the coaching space because it's going to separate those who actually know how to coach and are using AI sort of as a filter or using it for ideas or using it as an assistant versus those who
hmm
use AI to do all of the creation for them. AI is a fantastic tool. I teach my clients how to use it, even when it comes to creating courses. But you have to know the prompts to put in there because if you just say,
Yeah.
hey, I'm a life coach, I want to create a course on how to live your life's purpose, it's going to give you information, sure, but it's
Mm,
what you add to the information, how you take that information, synthesize it. You're able to curriculumized it based on your methodology, your personality, the things that you like. It's all of those nuances to AI that are going to make the difference. If you go in there and just say,
mm,
give me a course, it's going to do that. And there's going to be thousands of people that are going to take advantage of that feature. But the ones who really kind of come out on top are going to be the ones who know how to prompt it properly so that
mm.
it's really just a tool that's supplementary, but not the thing that's going to be the thing for them.
Yeah, it almost seems like the content is gonna start getting more similar from course to course,
Yep.
but the differentiator will be kinda how you promote it,
Right.
the audience that you build, and then your personal touch to the topics, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's always gonna have to include the fact that you want to insert yourself into the content because I am not the coach for everybody, and that's great. Like
Mhm,
I'm not the coach for, probably the 45-year-old um white male that probably has nothing like it doesn't
mhm.
ideally the things that I talk about are very feminine leaning, and so I'm not going to be
Yep,
the coach is going to be for that person, right? Like, are the techniques the same? Yeah, the funnels, the systems, all that stuff, yes, but in terms of long-term coaching, probably not for me. Now I do have 45-year-old white male clients. I'm not saying that they're not allowed to work with me. I'm saying that my average client looks like
yeah,
me, right? Like they're pretty much like
mm,
me. They're a woman, they're highly educated, they have degree after degree, they've been in corporate America, and they're ready to monetize.
mhm,
So having said that, while the content in terms of life coaching, relationship coaching, executive coaching, business coaching, all of those like sub niches within the industry are going to continue to exist, but you're going to relate to who you relate to as a coach. So look for that person.
mm. Okay, interesting. And then I agree with you, I definitely think everybody should niche down, and it's easier to niche to your own personality, really.
Yeah. Mhm.
Just as a
Right.
general way to relate to people, it's easy to relate if you're yourself.
Yes.
Um, but how did you kind of decide or, how did you find your product market fit then in terms of your courses and your coaching? Was there anything specifically that happened that you were like, "Oh, wow, I know a lot about this. People really want to know about this, and this is exactly where I can find those people." Was
Yeah.
there any aha moment for that product market fit?
Yes, I think that back in 20 before I was just working with or the market was anyone who wanted to build a personal brand and monetize themselves, right? Like, and that's a pretty wide gap in terms of who I can who
Everybody.
I'm right, that's pretty much everybody. And then somehow in 20, I would say 2018, I took a look at my clients that I'd had over the past several years, and I realized that 86% of them had advanced degrees. And I was like, well, that makes a
Mm,
lot of sense because I have advanced degrees. So naturally, they would want, so I started using that as a messaging tool to say, hey, like if you have an advanced degree, if you've gotten degree after degree after degree, and you still have found yourself unfulfilled and unsatisfied and, underpaid
mm,
in the positions that you've been taking, then this may be the community for you because 86% of
mm,
all of my clients have experienced the exact same thing. So finding that, and sometimes it takes a little while. People get really, really frustrated when they can't find their niche right away. And I'm like, you haven't worked with
mm.
anybody yet. Like you don't even know
Yeah.
who's going to
You got
resonate.
no data.
So, right, you have nothing to go off of, which is fine. We all
Yeah.
started there. But eventually it sort of just jumps out at you like, oh, well, this makes a great deal of sense. This is where all the people are
Mm.
because the market will tell you, especially if you're showing up authentically. The market will tell you.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think, yeah, I agree with you. I think everybody needs to figure out who their perfect customer is and then go from there because it's very hard to service everybody. And if you service everybody, nobody's going to have the perfect experience or the best
Right.
best results.
Yeah.
Um, okay, and so let's dive into your course a little bit. So
Okay.
you've created a lot of courses. It
Yes.
seems to be you kind of nailed the formula, and you've covered a few different topics. Um, I would say is to start out with is courses or one-on-one coaching your biggest area of business at the moment?
Definitely. Well, I would say overall in my entire coaching career, it would be courses.
Hmm.
But over the last year, just because of the capacity that I had to create new courses, I focused more on some one-on-one clients. But over the course of
Hmm.
the entirety of my business, it's definitely been courses.
Got it. Okay, and then in terms of someone getting started with courses, so they have the following, they have the content, they have the knowledge. What are some kind of tools or basics that they need to adopt to create a good course? Because there's so many courses out there now. It's really hard to stand out. What do you feel makes creating the course easier? What do you feel like a good course needs nowadays?
Yeah, so I think nowadays, a good course is going to need a very tangible solution. Sometimes, because we want to help everybody, we want to help them with everything, we try to throw it all into one course, and people get very overwhelmed with that. Like, you shouldn't come out with, a course that's going to take somebody 6 months to complete right out of the gate, if it's your first time, especially. So I say
Mm,
create something that's a micro type of course that really gives you a taste of what it looks like to get someone from the beginning to completion. Because a lot of the times people want to create a course that gives people way, way too much information, and no one's going to
mhm,
finish that. So my course creation rate is about 60 to 75%, depending on the thing that I'm teaching, whereas the average
mhm.
course completion rate is only 20 to 30%. And the reason why is because
Wow.
I'm very clear, like, we're doing this for a short amount of time. Like, my very
Mhm,
first course was something that they could complete in a weekend. It was 6 modules, but they could complete it in a weekend. And I learned
wow.
the nature of how people learn on their own, especially if you're doing self-study courses, because self-study courses require discipline for somebody to complete them. And the reason why people don't go back to it is because they don't have that discipline. So you need to give them wins
Mm,
right away, like right out of the gate. So create things that are more short and micro, because you can always create more things versus let me just create
mm,
one big thing. I'm definitely an advocate of create many, many small things that get people wins right away, because then they'll stick with you for a lot longer.
mhm. No, I love that idea because, yeah, it's really how do you get that person that aha moment as fast as possible?
Hmm.
And if it's a 60-hour course, it's probably not happening all too quickly.
Not happening
Um,
quickly. And
no,
most
that's
people are
great.
going to look at it and be turned off by the length of time it's going to take for them to get a result, you know? Like, we don't want to
Mm,
be like, oh God, I'm going to have to be here for 60 hours before I can see something tangible. So, in my
mm,
experience, creating courses that give people results just as soon as possible are always the win. It's a win for you, it's a win for them, and it's a win for
mm.
the world. So start there.
Yeah, nice. No, I love that. And then if you do have a pretty complex topic or you do have a lot of content, do you suggest kind of like breaking them up into like, beginner, intermediate, advanced, or by topic? How would you kind of want to split up a complex topic that you're trying to teach?
Yeah, and because people will come into your universe at many different points, right? So the way that I have
Hmm.
people, when I teach my clients how to create courses, I say, okay, walk me through the entire process of what you want to teach, and then recognize that at each of those steps, people will come into your experience. So in the
Mm,
major steps, like there are the beginners, there are the intermediates, and there are the advanced. I would say usually there's no money in the middle. This is always there's no real money in teaching somebody how to be an intermediate. So don't let's not focus there. But if you focus on teaching a beginner how to no longer be a beginner, or teach an intermediate
hmm,
how to advance to a higher level, that's really where the bulk of
mm,
people are going to want to come from. So if you can synthesize your content to have at least one for a beginner, one for somebody who's ready to up level, those two spaces really are enough. Now, you can divide that up how
yeah.
you want to. You can have a part one and part two. You can create two separate courses. But I'm more of an advocate of creating two separate courses and two separate funnels because, like I said, people are going to come in into your universe at
Mm,
many different stages on their journey, and you want there to be something available for them.
got it. Interesting. Okay. No, I love that advice. And then um, next question would be things to avoid. Like, what was the most difficult thing about you getting started with courses and coaching? What was the biggest hurdle that you kind of had to overcome, and what can you prep others just diving into that journey with?
Uh, I would say the biggest hurdle is scale. It's scaling a
Hmm.
course, right? Most people with some sort of experience, expertise, especially if you already have some sort of community, you can sell 10, 15 courses, right? At that
Mm,
level, usually. If you're looking to scale it, that's really where your business acumen is going to be a little bit tested because there are so many different models, so many different methods, so many different ways that you can scale. You're going to have to find the right one for you. Is it webinars? Is it ads? Is it content creation? Is it all organic? Do you pay for something?
mhm,
So a lot of that is the trial and error part. So creating the course. probably not a big deal for most people if you can synthesize it. Even
Hmm.
selling your first handful or two handfuls, also not going to be a big deal when you have a community. But scaling it to, you know, 6 figures, 7 figures and beyond, that's really where you're going to be tested, because you're going to have to try a few different methods to see what works best for you in order to get there.
Mm, interesting. And then which channels or methods do you think work the best for you? And then which channels or methods do you think people should focus on? Because obviously what works for you isn't going to necessarily work for everybody. So
Right.
what's the ones that work for you? And then what's the ones you would recommend?
You know, I'm at a stage now where my community has, it's been so great. Last year, 2023, was a little bit tough because I was dealing with some family things. So I just didn't have the capacity to maneuver in the online space in the way that I typically have done with like live launches and things like that. So I really had to rely on things that I'd already built, which was my community, and to make
Mm,
sure that I was serving them properly. So at this stage, I'm really at a place where my community is self-sustaining in a way. So when I launch new things, my community is like, yep, I want that. Let me hop on board. So for me, that has worked really well, at least for the, you know, the last 12 months or so. Prior to that, I was a live launch girl. I love a live launch. Some people hate it because it's exhausting, it's draining, and I'm like, I love it. I love being, you know, talking to the people, whether it's a live webinar, whether it's some sort of live challenge or something. I actually love it. That's like the bread and butter of how I was able to grow so quickly, was doing live launches because I actually enjoyed
mm.
it. Now, there are some people who are going to be like, I hate live launches. They're so draining. I have clients who are like that. They're so draining. They're
Too
so
stressful.
exhausting. They're stressful. There's so much you have to do. And they're not wrong. I mean, it's true, but
Yeah.
you know, there are other methods. So, for example, I told one client, I said, you know, you don't have to launch anything. Create the course, and then let's
Hmm.
focus on building funnels into it with some of the content that you're creating, because she's really consistent with her content. So if you're consistent with content,
Hmm.
then that's a way for you to get people into a course that's really evergreen. So live launches doesn't have to be your thing, or if you don't have a large community yet, also doesn't have to be your thing, because there's the content
Hmm.
world, there's the ad world, so there's lots of different options.
Yeah. So find your strength, lean into that pretty much.
Hmm.
Nice. Okay, well, Tracy, we came up on time here, and I would love to dive into a little bit more on where people could find out more, check out some of your courses, check out some of your one-on-one coaching, some of the content you're doing. Your
Yes.
content on Instagram's great. You're sitting there doing like something else and then giving advice at the same time. It's very engaging,
It's
very
my
interesting,
that's
and
from
out of
my
the norm.
YouTube world, as a vlogger. Yeah, Instagram is probably the best place to find me because I'm most active there, but I am on all of the social media platforms. If you happen to prefer TikTok or Facebook, then you can find me there as well.
Great. Well, we'll link to all of that in the show notes and make sure that you guys can find Tracy. But thank you so much for the time today. You dropped some amazing value here, and I think it's going to be very useful for those content creators and
I
people
hope so.
get diving into courses and coaching. So we really appreciate the time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hey guys, we put a bunch of effort into making great content for this YouTube channel. So please hit subscribe, leave us a comment, hit like, and tell a few friends about it.